And welcome to the In the Back Pocket review show. Big round of footy. We're going to break it all down, see the winners and losers. Zebrafish, Pouches Brown, Kate McCarthy. We're still working on a nickname to go with you on that one. Are there any in the bucket that I can...
K-Mac.
K-Mac? I think we can do better than K-Mac. Okay. We'll work out.
Good luck.
We'll work out it. But let's have a look at the big winners around, because there were big winners in the punting sphere on the feed, and there wasn't a so big winner, but there was almost one for us. So let's have a look at these ones. Lukey W is our one that we go to right here, because we all know YZDA. He put up a winner here, and all of a sudden his followers went from about 40 and it went all the way out to about 2,000. We need to give Lukey W the same treatment.
27 legs.
27 legs, and they're all little same-game multis. Look at that, $115 odds. Remarkable on that one. So let's see if we can get his followers up, because YZDA went from about 20 to about 2,000.
Over 4,000.
Over 4,000. Yeah. The Army just got a hold of it.
Done.
Now, here's the one here. Talk to us about this one, because I believe, Kate, this was your leg, yes. The John Newcomb.
My sincere apologies. Over 27 and a half. He got nowhere near it. He only got 27. And he was on 27 for a good percentage of the fourth term. So we were so close 27. Yet so far. And the only thing that we usually rely on is Felix's leg getting up, and it did. And then the 27 didn't cover the 27.
Did he get anywhere near the ball in the last few minutes?
I was not watching, I was working, so I'm not entirely sure. Did you see, did he get close to it?
The final 10 minutes, I believe he was sitting on 27 for the final 10 minutes. Now, he went off, so I think Sam Mitchell didn't really have the big plan in order there and understand what we were looking at, but unfortunately it wasn't entirely his fault. But the footy across the weekend, especially towards the back end of the weekend, was fantastic. Collingwood and Geelong, proof that the footy gods do not exist, because the final play there, Jack Crisp, a chance to win it on the siren, and just doesn't get it done. That would have been one of the greatest endings to a game we've seen in a long time.
Can't all do it, can they, Zach?
You need a big set of agates. It's not for everyone, unfortunately.
Is this a free kick or not?
Yes.
This is not contentious for mine.
Yep.
I understand that in the heat of the moment, people would have liked it to have been paid, but
it's a theatre. It's a theatre free kick. That's what people wanted a free kick for, because of the theatre of the occasion. For me, slips below the knees, it's a trip. I was so happy for that to be paid as a free kick that I don't think there's much to talk about, and I think we can slow it down. We can look at it as much as we want. Ultimately, the umpire has half a second to make that decision.
This could have been just one of the greatest moments in football. And the annoying thing for Jack is that he's going to always look back on this record-breaking game, what should be a monumentous, amazing moment in your career, just with that little moment that just sours a little bit for him.
It would be up there in some of the most iconic moments in the game, wouldn't it? Would have been great. So, but he missed. You can't all do it.
McGrath for Brisbane.
Did you think about talking him through it at all?
I don't like when it gets brought up. Like I said to you, I'm just a regular guy.
Just a regular
guy. Much better than most.
You said to me, can you bring that up?
I did not say that in your horrendous call. That almost ruined the moment for me when I look back on it. Did McGrath for Brisbane kick one in his...
Yes,
Miracle on Grass.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, you called me Pouches Brown. It was Value Brown last week, because I gave you this. So Bailey Smith, his last 5, 25 plus. Have a look at that. And then in round 8, he was $1.28. I told you, Pendlebury, 4 of his last 5, 25 plus. He had 26. He was $1.90. $1.90 compared to $1.28. Got to take Pendlebury every day of the week. Tick, tick, Pouches Brown.
Pouches Brown. Well, the pouches were full because the Gorney bet that you gave us was the best of the week. You said 30 plus, and he goes for 35 plus.
Yeah.
Gorney. Well, the West Coast had been the worst side at containing ruckman possessions, and I just said it's either 25, it's 30. I didn't go to 35, but Big Max Gorney didn't let me down.
Huge weekend for you, Brownie. Well done. Some of those would needed a lot of research, and it's paid off for you. Well done. That was
Who did the research for you?
What?
Kate. There's going to be a nice email chain of exactly where that came from. Freo at the moment, coming up against the Pies. Freo right now, what a fall-off for a team that we thought potentially, people were talking minor premiership, top 4 was almost a definite, according to a lot of people, has just completely run out of wind.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at some of their lowlights for the season to back up these numbers that we're seeing at the moment. Just on Friday night, I really struggled to see how they were trying to move the ball when St Kilda didn't give them what they wanted. So they were well coached. Ross Lyon had gone. He'd done his homework on how Fremantle want to move the ball. And then they had no other options. It was just really slow play. It took till about the fourth quarter for them to actually take any risk with the footy. For me, it looked like either they hadn't trained a second option with their ball movement, or they hadn't communicated that to the players with what they actually wanted them to do. So it was an execution, or was it a game plan? I can't work it out. But for their inconsistencies for the season, I don't know what to expect from them week in, week out.
For a really talented player, is Shea Bolton the worst snap at goal in the AFL? Like, he is an unbelievably talented player, but it goes back to his Richmond's days. The amount of times he hits the belly of the football from 30 out for an easy snap is, it would be 8 times out of 10. I think he is the worst snapper in the competition.
It's interesting. I heard Joey Montagna mentioning that on Triple M over the weekend. Did you get that off Joey?
No. But it's a very good point.
I reckon you might have been in the same box. You're stealing that one right there.
No.
Zach, the root cause of Frio's...
Nathan, it's good.
Nathan, we've spoken about this. The root cause of Frio's issues right now, are we saying Justin Longmuir? Are we saying team? Where are we going at the moment?
Well, as harsh as it sounds, it can't be the personnel because the list is stacked. And I think that's one of the things that frustrates Freo supporters. You talk about them playing safe. They have the personnel to play a risky game and cover themselves for when it doesn't work. But when the tide is against you and you're not performing well and still playing safe with those players, unfortunately, I think you probably have to look more in the coach's box than out in the ground.
This season so far, as you've said, Kate, has just been very, very disappointing to say the least, especially when we talk about the big raps that have been on. There's some teams that, if you had looked at that in the pre-season, would not have been saying that, Brownie.
No, it's pretty bad reading there, isn't it? So every time they go away, they can't play. So the 4 losses, and the 1 win away was the Richmond win, but that was on a ground in Adelaide where both sides were away. So Fremantle, look, they're good enough to play finals. I'm not throwing them out at the moment because they could quite easily beat Collingwood on Thursday night with what they have and how they play at home. You don't get Brayshaw and Sarong playing 2 bad games in a row. They were pretty ordinary against St Kilda. So I'm going to hold fire on Fremantle because at Brisbane last year, after I think it was round 13 or something, Brisbane were like worse than mid-table. They won the Premiership. I'm not saying Fremantle can do that, but I'm not prepared to give them up on them yet.
Fremantle playing well below market expectation at the moment. The Dogs, on the other hand, way above and now being spoken in Premiership contention.
Yeah, and I think they deserve to be. I think the work that they've done at the club to find the depth, and I've spoken about the depth before, that now they've found players in different positions that now we're seeing Treloar come back. He got through the full game on the weekend. Bont's come back. And because they've found these players, the Bont actually spent a large portion of that game in the forward line because they were winning it through the middle. They didn't need him to necessarily play that big midfield starring role. But then who's your matchup? It's a bit like the Dangerfield effect. Who's your matchup when the Bont goes forward? Is it a tall? Is it a small? Someone that can run with him? So I think the work that they've done at the club over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, you got to remember last year they decided Jack McRae, Caleb Daniel weren't part of their future. So they were playing Joel Frazier, they were playing Ed Richards, they were getting games into them, which has put them in a position to be able to use them through the midfield to cover those injuries. Now they're getting players back, and I think they're in such a good space at that club for the depth and to get them through the season.
I think the injuries have been a blessing because you don't find players like Frazier and Sanders and they don't get time through the middle without those 2 injuries. So, yes, you don't want Treloar and Bontempelli out of the side at the start of the year, but maybe they're not going as well as what they are right now if they had have played and started midfield every game.
And this version, there is no Darcy playing. And he was the number 1 player in the competition when he got injured. If they can continue on their way, I mean, they were really impressive without the Bont, who most of us think is probably the best player in the comp. Continue on their way, get Darcy, give him an extra 2 or 3 weeks. He comes back in for a major finals campaign. They're the real deal. They'll be there when the whips are cracking.
Coming up against the Gold Coast this week. With this one, are we reading more into the Dogs with a loss here or more into the Gold Coast? Because right now, the magnifying glass is well and truly on the Suns.
It is, and they failed their first big test. They lost to Richmond, obviously, which isn't a big test, but it's not a game they want to. But against Brisbane, how they built it up, how they went after them in the pre-season, and they went after young Ashcroft, who was best on ground, got the medal. So the Gold Coast Suns, I reckon, Dim would be very disappointed with the playing group and what they put out last night.
The big factor of this one, obviously, up in TIO Stadium in Darwin, the Gold Coast have an extremely good record there. It only sort of just turns that back more into their favour than probably playing it at People's First. But I think it's going to take some beating because they got absolutely dominated through the midfield from those Brisbane mids with clearance. They couldn't compete in clearance, and a few weeks ago we were talking about how good the Gold Coast midfielders were. That's the part of the ground that they need to tighten up against the Bulldogs, who are scoring a lot of points from clearance.
Has anyone here played in Darwin?
Yes, got smacked there last year against Gold Coast. Genuinely one of the most one-sided games I've been involved in. We lost by 80 points, I think. But I think this is a huge game for Gold Coast. If the Doggies drop this game, I don't think it would affect very much how I view them in their Premiership credentials. If Gold Coast drop this, you could argue they beat Adelaide early in the year, still just got over the top of them up in Gold Coast. They dropped the game to Brisbane, who's their first real big challenge. And if they lose this as well, I think there's serious question marks over them.
A lot of contenders here. Let's have a look at the AFL Premiership market overall to see where the market movers have been in this one. Pre-round 8, $8 for the Hawks. Beat down on a lowly Richmond, but still just pressing in there to $7. That's still a surprise for me for the Hawks to be that short right now. A lot of people aren't entirely sold. Is this still an apprenticeship year, Brownie, for the Hawks?
I don't think they're playing great football either at the moment, Hawthorn, but they're winning. So they will at some point start to play really good football, and their upside, as we know, is really big. So they're winning without playing well. It's good signs.
Certainly is good signs. I'll tell you what else is a good sign.
What is that?
Daniel Hoyney is in the Sportsbet building. Let's catch up with him now.
Hoyney! 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 Hoyney!
It's my favourite part of Monday. We pull out Daniel Hoyney from the Champion Data cryogenic freezer. We melt him and we bring him in here. And you went at Jordan Dawson last week. Didn't go at Jordan Dawson, but you mentioned maybe not doing as well as people think he is. He's bounced back, and I would hope to think in your Brownlow tracker it's made a bit of an impact, because in the markets with us, he's been $18 into 10. So the punters have reacted.
Yeah, as we said last week, his overall performance on the surface has been pretty consistent in terms of how much ball he's been able to win throughout this season, but the impact with how he's used the footy hasn't been there. But on Saturday against Carlton, that was back. 3 goals, more forward half time, but just the 22 disposals, but the impact that came from that's what we've seen from Jordan Dawson for a number of years, and it was good to see that on Saturday.
Or Isaac Rankin get the 3 votes from that game?
I would be surprised if Dawson doesn't get the 3 votes. I would have thought from that game.
It was a tough day for you there, because you're a big Carlton man in terms of the data behind them, and they lost. And then unfortunately as well, with Zach Dawson playing well, it was a disaster for the Hoyney followers.
We get him on to pump him up, not bring him down.
That's not what it says on my rundown.
Anyway, we don't jump at just one performance, as
that is
Felix.
true.
Hold
You use
true
rationale
with
and you
the
take emotion out of the question and use your head. Your Brownlow predictor is very popular every single year, and you've had a very, very good track record with it as well. Where do you sit at the moment with a lot of players?
Yeah, so we thought that we'll bring it up today off the back of our conversation last week, and now we're 8 weeks into the season. And what our tracker does, it takes into account areas of the game that have actually aligned with previous Brownlow medalists. So things like disposals, contested possessions, clearances, playing on a winning team has been really important, obviously. But then it also factors in previous polling history for all players as well. So as you can see there, that's our top 5 at the moment. Nick Dacos is a little way clear on our Brownlow radar at the moment. Take out that opening round performance. We're just talking about him off air. The impact that he has had on matches this year has wavered at times, but his overall ability to win disposals, contested possessions, clearances, and Collingwood have won a lot of games should correlate with some high Brownlow vote returns so far, 8 weeks into the season.
Jai Newcomb, that was the surprise there. So at a big price, still at $26.
Yeah, so 6 wins for the Hawks. You probably go through their team at the moment with Will Day out. He's the one that is getting a lot of those disposals, contested possessions, clearances, and has actually polled okay in previous seasons as well. So that's one just to keep an eye on.
You guys have a whole range of different ladders and ways that you can stat teams' performances, but the turnover differential is a pretty popular one for you guys.
Yeah, it is. It's the first go-to for us in how we're assessing teams' performances and what's real and what's not real. And basically, the reason why we go to this is that the turnover game is 65% of the game. The turnover game has contributed to 17 of the last 18 premiers being top 3 in that game. So not top 6, top 3 in that game. So as I always say, I'll back history until history changes. 1, 2 and 3 is where you want to be. That's where the Premier has been 17 of the last 18 years. And at the moment, we're only 8 weeks in, but the difference between the top 4, so Hawthorn are 4th, they're just outside of that. The gaps between the top 4 to the 5th ranked team are pretty significant at the moment. And just a couple of teams that are going okay on the win-loss record. The Dogs, Brisbane and Geelong currently sit 9, 10 and 11 in that aspect of the game. If that profile continues for those 3 teams, they're going to have to buck history to actually have some sort of success. They've got a long way to go, but...
Is there other areas of the game that those 3 teams or a couple of those 3 teams are excelling at? For example, scores from clearance or other parts of the game? Because clearly they're competing well and scoring and outscoring their opposition. Is there other elements to that then means that their profile sits slightly differently this year?
Yeah, so the Dogs and Geelong are 1 and 2 in the clearance game. And you saw that on Saturday night with Geelong's performance. Their last 3 goals of the game came from stoppage. To turn that around in the last quarter and make it an in the trenches game, that's where they're going really well at the moment. The Dogs on the weekend scored 12 goals off the back of their stoppage work. It was phenomenal. So they've got that aspect down pat. But that's the major aspect of the game. 65% of the game is in that area.
With these team metrics that predict potential future success, do you factor in opposition? Because I know Gold Coast we're all quite bullish on, but I think you could look at who they've played and how they've performed when they've come up against.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. You always need to take it into account, but I'm always of the belief it's how you played, not necessarily who you play, but obviously, there has to be that element that you have to, take into account. So the Geelong situation where they're 11th at the moment, they've had 4 massive weeks in a row, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Collingwood and Carlton that we've spoken about as well. So it'll be interesting to track that over the next 4 or 5 weeks as well.
Based on that and our pre-show chat, I'm sensing a bit of anti-Gold Coast agenda from you. Maybe it's the Irish weather, you're not used to it up there in the heat, but there is anti-Gold Coast agenda from you.
Well, I haven't gone in on Gold Coast just yet. Like Brownie had him flag favourites very early on in the piece. I said, just hold your horses, pouches. They're not there yet. We haven't seen them play any of the best teams in the comp. So as is usually the case, my hesitancy is proving correct.
I don't believe I said that at all.
It's a funnier story if we say
Spreading misinformation, we love it. Jack McRae having himself a year for the Saints so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to give him a bit of recognition and a bit of love for what he's actually doing at the moment, because there's no midfielder in the competition that is impacting the game more with how they're actually winning the footy. So that's contest, clearance and where those possessions are actually coming on the ground. And they've won 4 games, which is probably a bit of a surprise to a lot of us at the moment. They're 4-4 heading into Friday night against Carlton. And he is pretty much the main reason as to why they are actually 4-4. His ability to be able to get some scoreboard return off the back of those ball-winning attributes as well has been significant. So, huge game Friday night against Carlton. You would be surprised if Hewitt doesn't go to him. If that happens, what else have St Kilda got? But if Carlton don't go to him, you're opening yourself up to a potential defeat.
He's been tagged once this year by Bedford against the Giants and he got him. I don't think he's used to being tagged. Do you think clubs will tag him and go after him, or would they say, well, he doesn't really hurt you by foot like some of the other midfielders, so we'll just leave him be?
I think you have to go after him just because of the St Kilda midfield. It is pretty thin. It is pretty thin, and you want to get Wanganeen, Malira in there and Sinclair in there and take them away from their natural habitat of that half-back area. If you take McRae out, then who have St Kilda got? And as you mentioned with the Bedford tag, Brisbane looked after him quite well. It falls away pretty quickly, so I'd be going after him.
Well, thank you, Hoyney. And there's no need to watch any of the footy shows this week because they're just going to be regurgitating everything that you've said right there. Thank you very much. Quick Hands coming up next. Maybe Sunday Footy Show and In the Back Pocket you can still watch. But the others... Welcome back to In the Back Pocket. It's time for everybody's favourite segment here, Magnet Movers. Now, Kate, clearly Zach and Nath just thought everything was perfect on the weekend and nothing needed to be changed because you're going for 2 players here. We're starting off with Ollie Dempsey.
Just a couple that caught my eye for the positional changes, and we love when sort of they're either thrown forward or thrown into the midfield because you know what that means? That means an increase in their goals or an increase in their disposals. And Ollie Dempsey has shown on many occasions this season that whether he's playing on the wing or, as we saw on the weekend, he got actually thrown forward in the 4th quarter and he ended up kicking his 2nd goal of the game. He's kicked 13 goals for the season. I would argue that every goal except for this last one has come from him playing the wing position and drifting forward. But he is the one that Chris Scott is going to go to when they need something in the forward line that just looks a little bit different to what they've got at the stage that they're in at the game. Kicked the last goal, an important goal in the last quarter. So I like him. I think you'd be looking at him anytime, even 2+ in games where they're coming up against an opponent like Collingwood, like anyone else in that sort of top 4, top 8 zone, because I think Ollie Dempsey will be the magnet that gets moved.
Well, he's a forward by trade. He was drafted as a forward. He's got a huge engine so he can cover the ground really well, and he's an unorthodox size for his skill set. So he's so good in the air, which means he doesn't typically play on a big body, but if he takes a smaller player deep who's not a natural defender, he's going to kick
goals. It takes courage to jump the way he does too. Like people go, it takes a big game. But it takes courage to jump into a pack, jump over somebody and still be able to take the mark and land. So well done.
the Western Bulldogs forward line, the Sam Darcy-less Western Bulldogs forward line is starting to take shape?
Yeah, I think they've got, or they've found their permanent solution for Sam Darcy when he's not down there, and we won't see him till sort of June, July. That's the prognosis at the moment. But Buku Khamis, he played almost a defensive forward role on both Aaliyah and Radaglia, depending on where the matchup was. Not only did he keep them to very limited influence on the game, he got all the way up the ground, so you could be looking at him to increase his disposals from what he's had on average this season. But the other one you'd be looking at, he kicked 2 goals playing that defensive forward role. And oftentimes when you are playing that defensive forward role, you're doing the selfless role for the team, and the footy has a weird way of rewarding you for that stuff, and you end up either earning yourself some free kicks for chase down tackles, bringing the ball to ground, getting on the end of a couple of handballs, or Buku has great overhead marking ability, taking a couple of grabs and kicking. So he had 2+ on the weekend. He's never played forward before permanently in a game. I think he's the man that they look at because Rory Lobb is needed down back. Liam Jones still out of the team, but they need a permanent solution forward, and I think it's Buku Khamis.
And the algorithm mightn't have caught up yet. So our traders, they like to look at it and go, okay, who's moved, who's kicking goals, and they move it quickly. This week, I think he'll still be a good price, Buku.
Love it. And there's something nostalgic about watching the football, watching a goal go through with a scissor lift and a whole bunch of construction equipment in the back. Reminds me of the old MCG days when they were fixing that up.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you, Brady. It's time for quick hands. You were telling us off air that Carlton are immoral to make finals. Are you still sticking by that?
I'm not throwing Carlton out. I am not throwing Carlton out. So they haven't beaten too many sides. They have beaten Geelong, though, and their pressure game is good. Daniel Hoyney told us how good their pressure game wasn't so good against Adelaide. But the last 15 games, they've only won 5 games, and that's who they've beaten: North Melbourne, West Coast, North Melbourne, and Geelong. Not great reading at all. But I look at their next 7 weeks. They play St Kilda this week, huge game. Then they play Sydney, who are out of form. The Giants at home, Essendon, West Coast, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide. That's their next 7 games. They should go at least 5-2, maybe even 6-1. I'm going to give them 5-2 from that run. And look, if they go 5-2, they're around the 8, the bottom half of the 8, so I can't toss Carlton out yet.
Dangerous game to play. What about the Swans making the top 8? Now, pre the win over the Giants, they were sitting at around $4.50. Now, sitting at $2.75. Do we have any takers? I think the Swans are going to be able to push. A few players coming back in and make that $2.70. It's a little tougher. It's a big drop off.
You're the one buying this. You sell it to us, Felix. You're buying it. Sell it.
I think the Swans make the top 4. I think the Swans make the top 8. No, I think we've still got some injuries, some players to come back into the lineup. I think that we're a far better team than what we're playing right now. A new coach in there. There's still stuff that has to click, and I think the second half of the season is going to be.
I like that you go to we. Yeah, we.
Are you those people that say you can't say we when it's your team?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely can't.
Why? It's not your team. You don't play for them.
What about the fact that I rock up to the games wearing a jersey?
It's Sydney. You don't say we, mate.
What do I say?
You're not part of it.
I refuse to say to my own Swans, I refuse to buy into that and start saying
you bought
them.
a membership?
Yes, I'm a fully fledged member.
You still can't say we.
I own a jersey with Von Hoff on the back. Oh, you got nothing now, do you?
Can't say we.
Oh, I'm going to keep saying we. Well, we, I think, will make the top 8 there. But let's jump over to this one. Justin Longmuir. It has been a nightmare start to the season for Fremantle. Zach Toohey, are you willing to swing the axe on Justin Longmuir?
Too fresh out of the game to start trying to sack people, but the pressure is clearly going to come for Justin. The list is far too strong to be consistently underperforming the way they have been, not just this year. It's been a couple of seasons now. They've had a list that looks primed to challenge. And based on what we saw against St Kilda, that was a deplorable loss. And again, they just had to win against a team I don't think will feature later in the season. So I don't like sacking coaches, but I do think the pressure is going to come pretty quick.
Certainly is. What about Max Gawn? Potentially 9 Brownlow votes.
In the last 3 weeks?
In the last 3 weeks. Is he a guy sitting in the sort of triple figure odds? Is he a guy that can properly contest late in the year?
It's just whether Melbourne can win enough games. We spoke to Hoyney before, and it's clubs that win enough games that get the vote. So his share. So Melbourne didn't win the first 5 weeks. They don't. He didn't vote the first 5 games. The last 3 weeks he's been very good. Dominant big man. He'd be on 9 votes at the moment, but I don't think he can win it.
Where do you sit on your Brownlow tracker? Because Champion Data, Hoyney's got his Brownlow tracker. They've got millions of dollars behind it. They've got a whole team. You're just a little mum and pa fish and chip shop over here on your own.
Absolutely, I get it right as well. Jordan Dawson I've got leading by a vote to Nick Dacos, and then there's about 4 players on 11. It is going to be the tightest Brownlow we've seen in some time.
Nice, didn't ask for your leaderboard, but thanks anyway. Kate, what do you think of Max Gawn here?
Oh, I think he's a chance. I mean, he's $101 at the moment. I think the odds reflect the genuine chance that they are to win it. I wouldn't have him in the top 10. I think his last 3 games he could have easily got best on ground for all three. You've also got a Cozzy Pickett performance in there where he kicked 5. I think the umpires will look quite favourably on that. And there's also the risk around the other players in that team doing things to take votes off him. I think we love to romanticise about the fact that a big ruckman or a key forward could win the Brownlow. The truth is they don't, unfortunately. It's the mids, it's the inside mids that seem to be looked upon most favourably by the umpires. So I don't see him winning it for that reason alone.
On the topic of romanticise, I came to this weekend, my good friend gave me what I thought was a really good bet, and I just thought it was interesting. The player you told me was going to kick 3 goals, Brownie, started to wander in the opposite direction of the field. What happened there?
Blake Hardwick let me down. And Sam Mitchell really let me down. So he had 11 inside 50 targets last week, the most. I looked at the Richmond defence. I looked at Hawthorn. Big 10-goal win. Who's going to kick the goals? I thought Blake Hardwick's a man. And then I said to the Triple M crew yesterday, I said, I'm all in on Blake Hardwick today. I think he kicks a handful. And then he started wandering down the back pocket. Did not go near the forward line. So thanks very much, Mitch.
So Sam Mitchell, he's put John Newcombe on the bench and he's sent Hardwick over to the defence. So thank you very much for this week, Sam Mitchell. If you want more bets like that, you can follow Nathan Brown on the feed. Thanks for tuning in.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.